Hi, we're Nia and Marianne from Seren Health Coaching. We are metabolic health coaches who are passionate about good metabolic health for everyone. We also love to chat about all things health and to share as much information as we can with people who want to make changes to their lifestyle but aren't quite sure where to start. We're going to release a new episode every Friday where we talk about a different aspect of health. So do subscribe and let us know what you think. We'd also love to know what you're interested in too. So if there's something that you'd like us to have a chat about, do send us a message and we'll do our best to cover it soon.
Hi, Nia.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right, and I've got a really exciting subject today, but I'm always excited.
Okie
Um,
dokes.
yeah, so usually overexcited. Um, I've called this podcast Know Your Audience,
Yeah,
and
seems a
it's
good title.
all about personality testing and whether this would be useful for us as health coaches.
I've done quite a few and I've had some really awful experiences, to be
Have you?
honest, with them. Yes. So I have had the weird ones where people have tried to pigeonhole you into things that you've come away and thought, I'm not quite sure about that.
Yeah.
Or they've kind of put you into groups based on your personality test at training days. Can I tell you about the worst experience I've ever had with a personality test?
Yeah, do.
So I worked for a company as a pharmacist, obviously, and they were very excited one day because they wanted to use personality testing.
Yeah.
And what it was similar to Myers Briggs, but you filled in a load of stuff and then you
Yeah.
got assigned a colour.
Oh, a colour.
I know, very exciting. And
Mm.
then once you knew your colour, that was supposed to go on your office door or wherever it was that you worked. And it was supposed to help whoever was coming to work with you to
Oh.
understand how to approach you and how to talk to you and how you might like to work. And I was really mad about this. I
Oh, I
just
love
thought,
that. Yeah, I
I
love
am
that.
not a colour. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
but just put the greens together and it's so easy, isn't it?
Yeah. And I
Mm.
thought, well, I don't know, it might be green today and it might be yellow tomorrow.
Well,
S-
exactly. Oh,
So,
golly.
yes, I have had varying different experiences with
Oh,
personality tests.
interesting.
So,
Okay.
we're not going to talk about that, right? Please?
Well, you know what I'm like. I get hold of something and head down the whole rabbit hole
The
thing,
rabbit
and I'm
hole.
so excited. I come back to you, and this is a really good illustration of how different we are. I'm a salesman's dream, that I'm already sold on the whole personality testing thing because I think this is fantastic. We can just pigeonhole
Mm.
people, and then we can give them a particular pigeonhole course that'll work for them. But of
Hmm.
course, when you delve deeper, this is much more complicated. But let's go
Yeah.
back a bit. So, um, what about the good things? So you get the very famous Myers Briggs personality test, and I'm
Yeah.
amazed when I delve a bit more that people use them at all because uh, the evidence isn't great. I mean, if you do them on different days when you're in a different mood, like you said, maybe
You
I'm a
might be
green
different.
today, you will come up with different letters. You got four letters and
Oh,
numbers, haven't you?
yes.
I can't remember, but you're an
Well,
IP, whatever. I mean, really? And maybe you're an introvert that day and maybe an extrovert the next.
it never really made any
Obviously,
sense to me.
no.
No.
So obviously quite snake oily and almost like astrology to me. And the more you
Yes,
know
yeah.
about the Myers-Briggs thing, the more I'm not tempted by that sort of personality testing. And it wouldn't be in any way useful, I don't think,
No.
in health coaching. The thing that I am interested in, which was, I think, hugely helpful, was
Yeah.
starting to learn my own personality type and talking about the two of us, the highlight, the way we have definite personality traits, and we've learned about each other over
Yeah.
time. So we are two very different personalities,
Yeah.
and I think when we first met, which was of course online, um,
So don't
we
make it sound like we did some kind of online
some
dating
dating.
program.
Oh, they do. By the way, they do use Myers Briggs in the dating world. Yes, we could have been dating, but we weren't. We were workmates, right? Let's make
was
Let's
just in the middle of a global pandemic. We
it
didn't just put
was.
an advert out
Yeah.
on.
Let's make this clear that we
Yes.
weren't dating. But I think we would never have chosen we'd never have chosen each other on a
No.
dating app, by the way, because we operated so incredibly differently. And
Yes.
I think if someone had told you would still be working with me some years later, you would have been pretty horrified
I wouldn't be
because
horrible.
and I would have thought, what, that girl who never says anything, I've got to work with her. So I think
Yes.
for both of us, we would have misjudged each other enormously. But having said that, we are incredibly complementary and we work
Yes.
really well together. And it's one of the reasons we make each other laugh is we come from such different angles about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I am definitely, slightly non-filtered, very spontaneous, and very excitable, and solve things very easily. I would say I'm a sort of feeling person rather than a more analytical and critical person.
Mm.
And I know that you, partly probably because of your background as a scientist, and your training that
Mm.
you're much more circumspect than me, and I almost rely on you to be circumspect for me.
I'll do the critical analysis. You
Yeah,
get excited. Yes.
exactly. Exactly. And that works really well for us.
It does. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
actually. Mainly the reason that I have had this history of not liking personality tests is because
Yeah.
it makes it sound like such a negative thing. Like, oh, you
Yes, it
have to
does.
ask all the
Yeah.
questions, Nia, and you have to go through all the research. And then you
Yeah.
start saying, oh, well, don't you think this is biased and all the rest of it? And it makes you sound like you're really not, like, really boring.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the
Exactly.
world needs a bit of everything.
Exactly. So my brain definitely works slightly differently to yours.
Yeah.
But what intrigues me about not the Myers Briggs end of personality testing, but much more the sort of broad brushstroke end,
Mm.
which I think could be useful and only within certain parameters. So, what intrigued me was that when I realized just how I operate, and I suppose as a health coach, you do your own exploration before you maybe try to be
Yes.
therapeutic for other people. So, what
Mm.
I realized when I did that original bit of personality testing and we used um, something different and much broader in terms of category, what I did realize was that, first of all, you can fill quizzes in any way that you want in terms of projecting yourself. So
Mm.
when I read the four categories, this is called the four tendencies. It's an American researcher called Gretchen Rubin, and she writes a book called The Four Tendencies. And it's very interesting because when you read the four tendencies, you already decide which one you want to be, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so I didn't want to be the one it turns out I am, but I wanted to
No.
be the rebel. So
Yeah, I
there's a
remember you
huge,
telling me before you
yeah,
took it, I'm the rebel, I'm the
oh,
rebel,
I'm
I'm gonna come
definitely
out
the
as a
rebel.
rebel.
I don't need to do this
Mm.
quiz. I'm definitely the rebel. This is me, very me. She does it in a sort of U-shaped curve, right? And most people are the two big categories, which is she calls them the obliger, which
Mhm.
in other speak is the people pleasers, and
Yep.
then the questioner. So
Mm.
not so likely to be worried about people pleasing, but more likely to be analytical and critical. And then
Mm.
you've got two much smaller categories. One is the rebel on one end, and the other is the upholder. And the upholder is that really self driven individual who tends to decide how to do life and to do it without external sort of accountability in a sense. And they
Mm.
make the most fantastic people to employ
Mm.
because they really are very good at just getting on with the job. Whereas the rebels like me, they're so rebellious they hardly ever do anything. So I think, and that's I'm talking in a work situation. Having said that, the rebel might be the questioner that changes, is the change agent, is more likely to say, but this doesn't work, guys. Anyway, what I'm getting to is this useful? Well, it's
Yes.
useful to know yourself. I mean, that is for sure.
Yeah.
And knowing yourself means that you know that you aren't categorizable because you're a complicated
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
And so even though I turned out eventually to not be the rebel, which was quite sad for me, and when I'm honest about answering the questions, I'm actually an obliger, right?
Yeah.
Which is the one I didn't want to be. But what I then realized is that in different circumstances,
You are
we're
different
always
things.
a bit of we can be
Yeah.
any of those, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest lesson, I suppose. So remember, I told you the story of I wanted to give up smoking because I wanted to have children, but I
Mhm.
loved cigarettes. And I was also married to somebody who really hated cigarettes and could not see any advantages of smoking because it cost money, smelled terrible, and was carcinogenic.
Yeah.
For him, he has a very logical, scientific type brain. This was a no go. He wouldn't even have put a cigarette in his mouth. I loved everything about cigarettes, and I won't go into it, but I did. So what he did, and he manipulated my personality, which I find galling, but I'm going to tell you.
I love
Um,
that you still get really annoyed about
yeah,
this.
I'm really galled, but I love the result because I gave up smoking quite effortlessly, in fact, and it's
Yeah.
something I still think about and I still love, by the way. But I'm very grateful not to be a smoker. So what he
Mm.
said was, "What a shame for people who are addicted to things." Because
Mm.
they're addicted to some outside force, so it's not their choice, is it? I
No.
thought, what is he talking about? It's always my choice. He said, "Well, not so if you're addicted, poor you." I thought that's not how it is.
Mm.
I can choose any time. So there's the rebel coming out.
Yeah.
And then when I said I was giving up, he said, "I don't think you'll last a day." And I
Fine, I
thought,
will.
you will never see me smoke again, actually.
Cheeky.
Even if I have to smoke behind the shed or under the bushes, you will never see me smoke again.
Yeah, but he would have
But
smelt it on you. I
yeah,
hate to tell you this,
or
but it would
there
have
are
been a
ways and
big
means with
giveaway.
that, yeah. But
Oh, are
anyway,
they? Oh, okay.
the end result was that basically I gave up smoking quite madly easily,
Mm.
and with some degree of resentment still, as you can tell.
Yes.
But what was really classic was that that particular angle has worked for me in other situations when we're talking about motivation. So
Mm.
if we asked our clients to fill in this very simple 12 question quiz, which put them into one of these broad brush stroke ideas,
Mm.
how useful would that be to us as coaches? And I think the only use would be if we absolutely understand that although I'm an obliger in
Mhm.
general,
Mhm.
I have this little rebellious streak. So how are
Yes.
you going to deal with me? Because you might think I'm just going to be the obliger, but lo and behold, you set me a little challenge, and you would see that streak
Mhm.
of rebellion. So it's useful and it's not.
It's kind of like a fast forward button. So I think for health
Yes.
coaching, we
Yeah.
have like a limited number of sessions, and you've got to try and
Yes.
build that
Mm,
rapport quite quickly because
exactly.
you've got something to offer the client, but they've got
Yeah.
to trust you to share quite a lot of
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
information. And you have to, when you are a client, you have to be quite vulnerable quite quickly,
Yeah.
because that's
Absolutely.
the way that you actually create change.
Yeah.
So having this knowledge of how that person thinks and works is almost like a little fast forward in that relationship that I can get going a little bit quicker.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's not, as you said, it's not the be all and end all. Some days I'm a
No.
pussycat, some days I'm a tiger,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
there will be variations of
Yeah.
that, and it is helpful to kind of start things off.
By the way, I've learned you're definitely not a pussycat, actually, which I probably would have said you were
Yeah.
originally, but that's quite a long time back, actually. So there's lots of things
Uh,
about you that are complicated and about me, and that's the
mm,
point. But what we know about our own personalities is um, that we are very complementary in how we
yes.
manage to work together. But in the same way that you could be very complimentary with a client because
Yes.
you might not have exactly the same way of doing things, but it's that flexibility that knowing yourself may
Mm,
allow you um, to not box people.
box people in.
But as you
Yeah.
say, to maybe push the fast button on some things. So
Yeah.
if you knew somebody was really interested in the evidence base of ideas that you were floating,
Mm.
um, it might just give you a little bit of fast forward on the fact that evidence would be really important to this person rather than you just floating the inspiring ideas. So you could coach in a slightly more targeted way, but
Mm.
it's not that box like way that I thought in the beginning. Oh, wonderful. So we can just put them in one of these four boxes and then, literally
Yeah.
give them a different course. It's never going to be like that.
No.
So,
I think that's where a lot of things fall down in the world, where you think you can
yeah,
pigeonhole people into certain
yeah,
ways. And the fact remains that
yeah,
we're all different, yes, but we're
yes,
also all different all of the time. So there are some things
yeah,
about your personality that are constant, but there's a lot of things that are malleable.
yes,
And
exactly.
it's about
Yeah.
respecting the other person and knowing that that might be the case.
The one other thing just to mention that personality testing and this particular program taught me, and
Mm.
this was vital, was that there was no good and bad personalities, and
Yes.
so I'd always thought that I wanted to be, a good personality, not a
Yes.
not a crap one, but
Yeah.
it turns out that each of those tendencies has both advantages and disadvantages. And I think if there's any lesson for me, that was the biggest one. So
Mm.
being an obliger does not necessarily mean that you're at a disadvantage. It means as long as you understand that that's how you operate. Um,
Gonna be
so there's a bit of each of us in all of it.
it. Yeah.
So
Each of it and all of us. Yeah.
that's what I found out about personality testing. I'm still riveted by the concept. I'm absolutely curious about personalities and how people operate.
Mm.
And
I think it can be really useful, and I think
yeah,
if and we would never force a client to do it should they not want to.
oh no, about self exploration than actually for us,
Mm.
particularly the client understanding a bit more about what sort of things motivate them and that it's all right to be motivated, for instance, by
Mm.
outside challenges. It's not a weakness as long as you understand that that's maybe a better way for you to operate. I mean, it's
Mm.
a
Mm.
huge plus. I find it really easy now as I know that if I set myself that outside challenge, I'm more likely to do it. I just have to turn up at the
Yeah.
first bit, you
Yeah.
know? And for me, that's perfect. All I need to do is sign up and pay for some strength training classes, and lo and behold, the strength trainer does the rest. So I
Yeah.
never knew that about myself. I don't have to
Yes.
love it. I don't have to. I just have to pitch up. It's easy.
Yeah. 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 It changes your whole mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Actually.
exactly.
Cool.
Nice to talk, Neil. Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye for now.